Truck Talk Media.
C10 Talk, episode 240. We got Steven, a.k.a. Longbed Larry, and we're going to talk scamming again. Part 2 of our C10 Scam discussion. Let's get into it. Here we go.
I was stuck in that situation where if I went and got it and took it away from him, I just lost my money and I didn't have anything to fall back on. As long as I let it sit there, there was still a chance that something could happen. Maybe he would do something to it to get it out his door and get it out of his way.
Damn, son. Seeing is believing. And our title sponsor, United Pacific, makes seeing a whole lot easier. The crispness of the United Pacific LED headlights, taillights, marker lights, and more makes seeing and showing your truck that much better. It's time to upgrade your old dim halogens for new LED headlights, taillights, and more. They offer the brightest and latest LED technology. Headlights are available up to 1600 lumens, easy to install, and it fits right in the OEM housing. How about upgrading to sequential taillights? They're DOT approved and ready to ship today. DOT approved. And for you 73 to 80 GMC and Chevy square body guys, they've got the new front parking lights, LED with stainless steel bezel. Think UP Car Parts. That's upcarparts.com.
Let me tell you what Melba's Post is packing right here. I've got 411 posi track out back, 750 double pumper, Edelbrock intakes, scored over 30, 11-1 pop-up pistons, turbojet, 390 horsepower. We're talking some bucking muscle.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast.
And now I have a chance to be the best, maybe the best in the world.
My old man is a television repairman. Got the ultimate set of tools. I can fix it.
I said I got 50 cents in that jukebox, and all I can hear is your mouth flapping. You hear that?
Here's your host, Ronnie Wedge.
Here we go, episode 240. C10 Scam Part 2, a continuum of what we had with Ryan talking with Steven. Now, the builder in this case is the same builder. I've had great response from you guys so far about this episode. I've even had more stories about this builder and guys saying, hey, I'll share my story. And I just feel like at that point, we're just piling on. So this builder we know is not, cannot be trusted and is not a good person. But there's other stories. And when you read through the comments, a lot of the comments on Instagram, Facebook of the different builders out there that have taken other people. So I guess the bottom line is be cautious, go with a reputable builder. Be careful if you're getting a smoking deal. Heads up, there's some shysters out there. All right, hopefully you guys get something out of these. We've got a couple good ones coming up. Episode 241, I've got Scott Mason, the editor of CK Magazine. They just had their 2-year anniversary and just got that issue. So I thought, I better reach out to Scott and check in with him. So that will be next week, episode 241, Scott Mason, CK Magazine, 2 years. Congrats. 242. Myself, who else? Johnny Oro, Sammy Sells. We're all headed out to Grand Island, Nebraska. So I'll take the recorder. We'll see how it goes for the 100 square body auction. Obviously, we just had Todd Big Fish on, talking all things truck, talking all things auction. He just dropped a 40-minute video. I put a link in our link tree. You can check it out, but I've made it about halfway through. So if you're thinking about bidding, you've got proxy bid, and there should be some good media and content coming out. I'll bring a pod back with me. Hopefully, I'll take some time. I mean, I want to have a good time, and I want to be checking things out, but you know how it is. I'll have that mic with me, and I'll be putting it in somebody's face and see if we can't get some content for what would be episode 242, coverage from the 100 square body auction, and that'll be the following week. So jam-packed stuff for you. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. You guys have safe travels throughout the summer, and we're just trying to put some content for you guys to listen to while the kids are in the back seat screaming and mama's taking a nap, and you've got your earbuds in listening to C10 Talk, and we do appreciate that. All right, that's it. Hopefully everybody had a great Father's Day, Dad's Day 2022. Hopefully you had some beer, some barbecue, family, whatever it is. Hopefully the kids took care of you. And to all those dads out there, thank you guys so much for, throwing our asses in that seat and making us look at that dash. Maybe even for some guys, for me, I was in the back. Man, I loved riding in the back. Yeah, in the bed. It was always a treat. Dad, can I ride in the bed? Yeah, sure. What the hell? So thanks to all the dads out there. Hopefully you guys had a great Dad's Day. Thanks for tuning in to episode 240. We do appreciate it. Oh, I almost forgot. I told Steven. So Steven reached out to me, and he's like, hey, I need a favor. And I said, what do you got, man? So, hey, I'm quote unquote, here we go. Hey, quick question. No problem if you have not finalized your intro or your final thoughts for the podcast next week. Is there any possible way you can thank my wife and kids for all their support and keeping me in line with what's happening with my truck on the podcast? I was so distraught about the truck and the build, and I made sure to thank people in the community, but truly they are the source for all my strength. And I love that because they're the backbone for this. And without that support, he probably would have thrown in the towel. But knowing that it was his dad's truck, knowing that it's a family heirloom, and everything that he's hoped for and wanted for, they're there to support him. And kudos to him for thinking, shit, I need to make sure I let mama and the boys know that I couldn't have done it without him. So awesome, Steven. Thanks for sending me that text. And I'm glad I didn't forget to get it in there. All right, let's get into the pod. Have a great week, guys. Late. All right, guys, we are back. Part 2. I've got Steven Hollinger, and Steven is kind of known as Longbed Larry. I'll be honest with you, Steven, for a while, I thought your name was Larry because it was Longbed Larry.
But, a lot of people did, and a lot of people still do. So it's just easy to roll with it.
Now, I heard, though, that that's your dad's name, and that's why you named the truck that. And I'm sure there's a story behind it. So let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast. Longtime listener, friend of the show. I get to see you guys and the boys. I get to see Mama at usually either LST or C10s in the trailer park. And for years, I remember kind of seeing, I even think, was there a rendering possibly in street trucks at one point? So let's just get into the journey of what we're doing today. I already had Ryan on, and we're not withholding, names and shop names, but we're not really diving deep into like, oh, that son of a bitch. We're just trying to say, here's some situations where a few guys, if it was one guy, it'd be one thing, but you've got multiple different people having very, very suspicious and negative interactions with the shop. So how can the community learn from that? And that is the number one thing, not a bashing, not a whatever is. And Ryan did a good job of even saying, hey, that chapter or that book is gone. It's behind me, and can't wait to enjoy my truck. So, Steven, welcome, and go from there. You just let it rip, my brother.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. The podcast is a short amount of time to try to tell a almost 6-year journey now that's still in despair as far as what my truck is going through. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those guys. I saved for like 20 years to get my truck built. This truck was a very sentimental truck. My dad bought it for me in high school. My dad passed away while I was in high school. It was my first truck. It was my graduation present from him. He made that deal when I was a kid. You give me a diploma, I'll give you this truck. Then my wife and I went on our dates in it. We brought our kids home from the hospital in it. We drove it on our honeymoon. I mean, you name it. It just became a member of the family. I know it's a piece of metal, but some of these guys like Mike Losh have their grandpa's truck that he bought brand new that he rode to California in that truck. Just that kind of deal. If it was any other truck in the world, I'd have parted it out, put the parts on something else and moved on. But, I saved for 20 years to build this truck, and it was a challenge. Even that back then, you know, the dollar amount I had saved up to build the truck was a lot of money to me, but that was kind of run of the mill for what people were doing for daily driver trucks. So anyway, I, just happened at Lone Star Throwdown to see this guy with this white short wide, and we get to talking, and, he's like, I built that truck. And I was like, oh, that's killer. I'd like to build mine one of these days. And I didn't have my truck there with me. I had something else at the show. So we get to talking back and forth, and he's like, well, I am square body specialist. That's what I do. All I do is square body trucks. And I was like, well, I'd love to do mine if I could afford it. And he's like, what's your budget? Told him what my budget was. He's like, you're right there. He said, I've done so many of these. I have it done to science. It's 500 to 550 hours. Take it apart, paint the frame, put it back together. You supply the motor and tranny. That's the big cost. And, the rest of it's body work and labor. And so he sold himself really well. I mean, he said all the right things. It's like, I know exactly what it takes, this and that. It can't go over. If it does, it's like $2,000. So we talked for like a year, and finally he was that far behind on his projects. And when he got time to be able to take mine, he's like, all right, let's get it. Should have been the first flag as soon as I went to take it up there. For a year, he'd been telling me, bring it to my shop. I've got all these shells. We take all your parts and pieces. We categorize it. It's marked. It's on the shelf. It's yours. Don't get mixed up. When it come time to take my truck there, he's like, oh, to save time, because I think I'm going to get your truck into SEMA for you, let's take it to this guy's body shop. He's going to go ahead and do a lot of the big body work stuff and get us that far ahead in the project. Wouldn't let me come to his house/shop. So we take it to that guy's shop. He meets us there. Still hell of a salesman, It just, everything he said was the right thing. I'm known for being overly generous and overly trusting. So he told me bring the truck, drop it off, give him $10,000, to get started buying parts and, get, first few weeks worth of labor done. I dropped my truck off and wrote him a $30,000 check. I got too far into the project as far as how much money I had versus the work being done. Little did I know that years later I'd find out that these other guys, like Ryan, who's on this podcast as well, me and Ryan have actually got to know each other pretty well and never met face to face. Looking forward to meeting him in Dino's this year. I did not realize that he was playing that rob Peter to pay Paul thing, where he was taking my money and the truck that had been sitting there already, he's putting my money over that, because that guy's starting to get mad because his stuff's not getting worked on. And then the guy's truck he takes after mine, well, he's taking that guy's money and putting a little bit of work into mine to take a picture and make it look like something's happening. So it drug on for years. You and Terry Hill and a lot of those guys, Mike Losh, a lot of my friends in the community, as it drug on, it was, hey, dude, go get your truck. You're going to have to do something, take a legal action. Something's not right. Something ain't jiving with this build. I was stuck in that situation where if I went and got it and took it away from him, I just lost my money and I didn't have anything to fall back on. As long as I let it sit there was still a chance that something could happen. Maybe he would do something to it to get it out his door and get it out of his way.
Yeah.
Because I'd already spent my budget, you know what I mean? And
oh, totally. You're stuck. You're just hoping.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So there wasn't that option of taking it. Yeah.
At what point, what was the communication like when you would call him? Because I remember talking to you at LST, thinking I'd have to look, but the rendering I think was, again, SEMA was in Street Trucks or something. Because at that time, I think that was like the only magazine alive. And I remember seeing it. And then, then we, SEMA obviously comes and goes because LST is in February. And I run into you guys in February and you're like, hey, I don't know if you've heard, but my truck is like, it's not happening. And it was supposed to be done and promises. And then that's when we're all like, hey, dude, this is crazy. Like something's not going well. So kind of one thing we did with Ryan is give us some kind of date markers. I know it's not the easiest thing, but you interact with him. I'm going to just throw it out there. LST 16, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that was. It was 16. I think I took it to him. I actually dropped it off on Cinco de Mayo of 17 is when I dropped it off in Minnesota at another guy's shop.
Yeah.
And
because I think that's when we met him when he came down. He drove Casper, and we all met up at Casey's.
He hauled it to Dallas.
Oh yeah,
and Casey, he hauled it to Dallas in an enclosed trailer, and then Casey Matthew had the cruise down to LST thing.
Yep.
For a year or two there, and that was one of the years. So he drove it, from Dallas down to LST. That truck was built for a customer, a client as he calls them. Come to find out, I met that customer a few years later. Well, he'd actually sent the truck back. He wasn't happy with it. Eric fixed it, repainted some stuff, this and that, brought it back to him. He still didn't like it. Eric supposedly ends up buying it back from him. Anyway, the client that the truck was even built for, he never even got it because he couldn't satisfy what the customer's expectation was. So as far as I go, for the first year, everything's fine. It goes to a guy's body shop who's a Riddler Award winner kind of guy, big name, Chip Foose is painted in his shop, this and that. So it goes to his shop, and I get pictures, and everything's rocking along. Man, they've got it stripped down, and they're filling panels and doing this, and it's moving right along for the first 6 or so months. Well, they get their major body work done, and then it moves from his shop to, I honestly don't know where. I don't know where it went when it left that shop. And fast forward down the road, I'll tell you more later about where it may have been. So anyway, then after the first year, he gets a lot of my parts bought. He gets a lot of major body work done, and it just comes to a halt. And we're waiting, and it's always somebody, we're waiting on this body shop guy, or my painter's behind, or, there's always some reason of why it's not his fault, but it's not progressing. So anyway, then the communication really slows down. There's not a lot of talk. I text. He don't text back for a few days. The further it goes, I text. He doesn't text back for a few weeks. We get to a point where I call, I text, maybe twice, 3 times a week, and we'll go 6 to 7 months and no response. And this is about the point where all my friends in the community, like you and Mike Terry, those kind of guys, Ken, are telling me, hey, something's up. That's not how people run their business. You got to go get your truck. Well, by this point, he had got most of the body work done. It was in primer. Rear end was cut down, that kind of stuff. And we got to the point where we burnt through all the labor and bought most of the parts, because he'd send me pictures of all these parts he had for my truck. So then we were at the point, well, I need another draw. Okay, here's another $10,000 check. Send him another $10,000. And that's supposed to get us into paint. And that's what I was comfortable with. So I thought, well, the truck's painted. It goes to interior. We get the interior in it. And then I come up, see the truck actually somewhat together. And then we push to that final hurdle, get the truck done, and I get you your final money. Then it just went to a standstill. He was still trying to, it missed SEMA 2 years in a row. I mean, I had my email from my acceptance letter. This is what booth is coming in, what haul it's in, blah, blah, blah. It was committed 2 years in a row. The third year, he was really trying to push to get it to SEMA. So he rushed it to Texas, and I'm praising this guy. There's a guy down there named Brent who owns Sculpt Garage. He's a half owner of Vibro Solutions, but he took it to him. Brent did all the interior work in it, brought it back. Well, I'm sorry. When it come time to leave Brent's shop, Eric would not come pick it up from him. He kept saying that he had to sell his enclosed trailer. He didn't have anyone to haul it, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, dude, I'm in a money bind. He said, if it was here, I'd be working on it and get it done, get it out of the way. But I don't have any way to transport it. And I can't go borrow a trailer because my friend that has a trailer is in race season. I can't get it right now. I went and bought a trailer to go get my truck.
Yeah.
So I go to Texas. And me and Brent had talked for several weeks before I went and picked it up. And I told him, I was like, dude, I don't want to come get in my truck, because if I come collect it, then he's got no reason to pay you. He's like, I need my shop space. He said, I'll deal with him later. Just come get your truck, get it up there so maybe he can work on it. He said, don't worry about the money part. He said, that's between me and him. He made that deal with me. So I finally went and got it. In transporting it back, the frame broke in half where they C-notched the frame. Thank God it did it in the trailer while I was moving the truck, because little did I know that once we got the truck back just last year, the guy who C-notched my frame, and I don't know who it was. I don't know who Eric had do this. They overcut with a cutoff wheel almost to where the top of the frame rail rolls over. They never welded it back together. They bondoed over their crappy weld job that they about halfway did, and bondoed over and painted over it to make it look like it was good, nice metalwork. And it literally
on the
broke in half.
C-notch. Yeah, on the
on
top.
the C-notch.
Oh boy, wow.
Yeah, so literally the C-notch broke in half in the trailer, hauling it back up there. So then it became the next fiasco of, well, this guy over here is going to fix all that, so drop it off at that guy's shop. Still won't let me come to his house, where supposedly his big, nice shop that he works out of is. So we take it to that guy's shop, and that guy's, oh, yeah, I'll get all this fixed, get it back on the frame machine, we'll straighten it up. And this guy's also a painter. He's going to finish the paint work on it.
So you take it all the way from Sculpt, which is Brent, which is a really good dude. And then you take it.
Guy.
Yes. And then you take it all the way. Did you take it to Wisconsin? And did you think you were ever going to Minnesota? Cause I always thought he was out of Minnesota. And then I'm talking to Ryan. He's like, oh no, he's like out of Wisconsin.
No. Eric is in Minnesota. He's just right by Minneapolis, Minnesota. The first shop I dropped my truck off at was like 30 minutes from his house, which was on the other side of Minneapolis. He was actually in Minnesota. When I took it back, I went to a different guy's shop who was also in Minnesota. Fast forward to when I found my truck, when Eric announced and emailed everybody that he had folded and quit business and we need to come collect our unfinished projects, I found my truck in Wisconsin. It was at another guy's shop in a dairy barn with no door on it. All my leather interior that Brent had done a fantastic job on was covered in bird crap because it was in an old dairy barn that didn't have any doors on it. So, this guy does $40,000 to $80,000 interiors in unreal kinds of cars, and it's sitting there covered in bird crap. But anyway,
yeah, you take it back to Minnesota and you're like happy, right? This is besides your C-notch that's cracked. You're like, all right, I'm actually making some headway here. I've got an interior that's done. I've got a truck that's getting finished. And even though I've missed SEMA a few times now with SEMA, was that something that you applied for and then got like, let's just whatever booth you were in, or, if you were a featured vehicle outside, whatever it was. And then were you the one who was kind of lining that up?
Actually, no, I think that is another, and I don't know if Ryan has said this in any other part of this podcast, but the shop I took it to was Square Body Specialist, which was run by Eric Miller, supposedly. I think this was another, it's easy to look back over 6 years' time and realize all the things I should have seen as red flags. I think it was more of his magician's work to distract you from what's really happening with your build. I think it was more of I'm going to get you excited about going to SEMA and, this and that. And that way you're not paying as much. You're focused on, hey, we're taking my truck to SEMA, not that, well, why isn't my truck progressing? I think it was more of his con to, just like a magician would do, look over here so you're not paying attention to what's going over there. And I actually never say anything about taking my truck to SEMA. When I dropped my truck off with the guy, it was supposed to be a good, nice driver truck. I never intended it to be what it became. He pushed it to that point because he wanted his name to be that level of build. He wanted everything to be Riddler quality type things. And the stuff that he was doing had the potential of being that. Ryan's truck is an amazing truck. I don't know if you've seen all the pictures of it. That's a killer truck. It had the potential to be that. But I never said anything about SEMA. I've never been to SEMA. And then when he said that, it really got me excited. Like, hey, I've never even got to go to SEMA. Here, I'm going to get to go to SEMA for my first time, and it's because my truck is going to be there. So, yeah, it really took a lot of my focus away from what he was really doing with my money and my truck.
Yeah. So when he was saying, hey, we're going to go to SEMA, let's just say 2019, because you dropped it off Cinco de Mayo 2017. So that's a little over 2 years. Let's just say 2019. Hey, we're going to SEMA. And then he's saying, oh, I've got a booth at the Ride Tech booth outside or whatever it is. I've got that. And he's telling you that. That's not through you. That's through him. And probably never was any proof of any kind of documentation or anything.
Yes and no. All my information about SEMA come from him. But when it come time to, I don't know, SEMA does a lot of things really early. You got to submit really early, and everything has to be approved really early, and this and that. It's months out. They've got everything kind of set months out. So however long it was, July, June, whenever they do all that stuff, I got an email from SEMA. I had my confirmation of my truck being accepted into the booth, what hall it was going to be in, what day and time, what gate you need to be at, blah, blah, blah. So it was all legit as far as getting my truck in there, but I don't think he ever even believed himself that he was going to make that deadline and have it there.
Yeah.
And then, nicely enough, the lady who had committed my truck to her booth space the next year, she's like, I know things happen. I'm sorry your build didn't get done. You call me next year when your truck's done. It's back there again. Went through the same thing again. She's, oh, yeah, bring it. We're going to put it in the booth. And then that's about the time that you'd go 6-7 months without being able to talk to the guy. And you just,
So when you would talk to him, did he ever give any kind of reasoning, or it was just all BS, just excuses?
So you bought a C10 and it either had AC at one time or it wasn't even an option. Well, Vintage Air has the solution for you. Their SureFit kits are designed to place the evaporator and hoses behind the dash for a factory clean look. In most cases, the SureFit systems will be controlled by your stock dash controls using their exclusive cable converters. The Gen 4 kit provides infinite, just right temperature, air blending, and blower fan speed adjustments. The Vintage Air SureFit kits are the best value and the most completely engineered air conditioning system you can install in your C10. Add the fact that Vintage Air has been the most respected name in performance aftermarket climate control systems for 40 years. 40 years? Damn, son. The choice is obvious. VintageAir.com.
C10 Nation, what's stopping you? Well, CPP has you covered. They offer multiple different options to make the disc brake conversion as easy as possible on both you and your wallet. From stock height conversions to their Big Brake Grand Slam kit. How's your altitude? You need to get a little lower? CPP has you covered there too. They offer a wide variety of drop kits for you to choose from. Head over to ClassicPerform.com, that's ClassicPerform.com, to save big today. Hey guys, I've got Andrew from Painless Wiring on. Andrew, what's the latest?
Just working on producing these GM truck harnesses. They're our best moving vehicle specific, and we're just, super excited to be able to service such a great community of truck guys.
Made in the USA. You guys are probably cranking them out nonstop. A ton of our audience is out there buying these trucks, building these trucks, and they know, hey, Painless Performance has got me taken care of.
Factory options, aftermarket stuff. If you have any questions, call our tech guys. They'll walk you through anything you need to know, and we'll make sure your truck gets wired up right the first time.
Wired up right, the history behind it, and the tech to support it. As always, thanks, Andrew.
Yep. Thanks, Ronnie.
So when you would talk to him, did he ever give any kind of reasoning, or it was just all BS, just excuses on top of excuses?
No, he always had really good excuses. Almost like a younger kid will do you. This guy over here didn't pay me, so I'm behind on X, and that's causing yours to fall behind. Or I've got a truck in front of yours at this other guy's shop, and that guy's dragging his feet, so I can't get mine in there to get yours done. But it was usually a round robin thing of, well, the build in front of yours, he's dragging his feet on paying me. Well, the build 2 cars in front of that, well, he's dragging his feet. You know, it was always an excuse that did not pertain to him dropping the ball. You know what I mean? It was
somebody else's fault, somebody else's issue, not his.
Oh yeah. It's always somebody else's issue. I'm pushing, I'm trying, I'm on the phone every day. I'm working, trying to get this done, and I just can't get these guys to do it, kind of thing.
One thing that Ryan said, did you feel like initially, because I think you might have been one of the first ones, besides maybe the owner of Casper, and then Colonel Mustard was the one where I had exposure to Eric with Casper and thought, okay, this is a pretty mean little truck. Single cab, short white truck, like 86, I don't know, but just, it was mean. It was a nice truck, and it was a performer. Then, if I remember right, Colonel Mustard, which, oh man, I love that truck. That was a California wine truck that had, had lived a really good life. Okra, a kind of Yellowstone-ish, single cab long bed. And then they converted it to 4-wheel drive. So those are the 2 trucks that, I've got this exposure to Eric, and I see, some quality there, and what seemed to be pretty meticulous. So when you're talking to him, what, he's giving you the excuses, you're making the decision, hey, I'm going to invest in this. What's some of the biggest lessons that you learned? Like, what, when you look back, what's something that because Ryan said, this is kind of where I was going with that, was Ryan really said that his customer service was over the top at the beginning. Like it was like courting your girlfriend. He was very, just over the top.
That's why, looking back on it now, the things I've seen as being an excellent builder and what Ryan called excellent customer service, looking back on it now, was all a con. And I probably know what you're getting at. I haven't heard Ryan's part of this, but like, he went to Florida and picked up Ryan's truck. Yeah. Well, he would always do things like that. He would always have that story of, well, I have to go to Texas anyway. I'm coming 30 miles the other side of where you live. I'll just stop by, do this, or I'll go, you know what I mean? It was always very convenient for him to do something for you. And 9 times out of 10, it boiled down to, he needed to go somewhere for himself. So he's going to get you to pay the dime for him to go do that, because, he tries to make it seem like he's doing it for you, but really, you're kicking him some fuel money because he's got to go there anyway, type thing.
Well, or he just didn't want you to come to his shop. You know what I mean?
And that too. I, in that many years, I've never been to his shop. Ryan was never at his shop. As far as I know, Brian, there's a build called Ollie C10. That was the truck that was there in front of mine, and Eric was building it. And as far as I know, Brian had never been to Eric's shop either. So yeah, but he tried his best to keep us all apart. And that's really when it kind of come tumbling down, is once I figured out who Brian was, and once I figured out who Ryan was, and once we all kind of met and got to talking, once we collected each other's phone numbers and got to talking, we all figured out what was going on, because we all were getting the same runaround.
Well, it's easy to hindsight say, oh, you didn't see the signs, but I'll tell you what, from the 2 builds that I was exposed to, and then following him on Facebook and seeing, like, I remember at one point he was building 12 valve Cummins he was figuring a lot of things out. People were asking him questions, and it looked like a really clean shop. Everything looked legit. So I think, I'm sure you've just completely kicked yourself so many times, but from the outside looking in, I could see where it appears that way. So did he ask for that big lump sum of money, or did he just say, hey, I need 10K? And then because you were just so generous, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, 10K. I mean, he said, when you drop your truck off, he said, bring me 10, maybe 15,000. 10 would be fine. That gets us going on body work for labor for those guys, and that gets a lot of your parts, a lot of your initial parts we need for mock-up. purchased. You know, he didn't ask for a giant lump sum of money. But then again, I believe that he wasn't asking for giant lump sums of money, because if you're getting 10 over here, 10 over there, 10 over there, 10 over there, that is a lot of money. You know what I mean? When you're not. Oh, and that's a big part of the story too, is when it came time for him to pick up my truck from Interior, he never paid the Interior shop.
Yeah, I was wondering about that when you said that.
Yeah, no. And come to find out, I talked to another shop that supposedly worked on my truck. They made a deal with him because they give him, I guess, a sob story that I don't have the money, some bad things happen, blah blah blah, and I don't have the money to pay you. So they cut him a deal, and they settled for a lesser amount than what he owed them. And then the truck, the guy who actually shot paint on my truck and screwed it up, and it's got to be redone now, he says he got paid, but I believe he did. He's like 40 minutes up the road from Eric. Eric uses him a lot. You know what I mean? He can't burn that bridge because that's his guy right up the street.
Yeah.
So, you know, he can't hide from that guy in Minnesota, you know, where some of these guys who didn't pay are in Texas. You know what I mean? He can't hide because that guy's right up the street. He can be on his doorstep every day and say, hey, where's my money? So I truly believe that guy got paid, but everybody else pretty much got stiffed. And it's terrible that people do that to people.
Do you think that Eric had his shit together and was becoming a good reputable builder, or do you think he just was always a shyster? Like, did something happen to him where he just got in over his head? And I'm sure you've dissected it from every angle. What's your thoughts?
No, I think it was all a shyster thing, because if you talk to anybody that's talked to him for any amount of time, there's so many stories he's told people about things he's done. Like, he was some promotional person for General Motors. He was this for some Lamborghini Ferrari dealership. I mean, he's got these just unbelievable stories about things he's done and places he's worked and how he's made his money and that kind of thing. And eventually the stories just all kind of get a little unbelievable. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things where the little Johnny stories you heard as a kid, he gets to be little Johnny, you know, my Shih Tzu killed a bear. You know, I mean, some of the stories just get outrageous where you're like, wait a second.
Did you ever reach out to Ken from Into Trucks? Because I know they were friends, and say, hey, Ken, you got to touch base with this guy because I'm striking out. I know, you're a good, well-respected guy in the community, and he befriended the guy. And I'm not trying to hang Ken out by any means. I love Ken. I'm just saying, well, at what point you had to be kind of exhausting your resources to think like, dude, what am I going to do here? I'm stuck. I want to give this guy every chance I can, but I'm getting nowhere here. This thing's been, 4, 5, 6 years.
Exactly. Ken is a very upstanding, honest person. One of the times I got a hold of Eric after not being talked to for 6 or 7 months was actually because Ken had called him and said, hey, Ken, I called and told Ken, what was going on. Ken actually called him and said, hey, you can't run your business this way. You can't take people's money and not talk to them. You need to call these people and let them know what's going on, tell them the truth, blah, blah, blah. And I believe that's one of the last times Ken talked to him. But actually, Ken went to bat for me. You know what I mean? I called Ken. I was like, I know you know this guy. I can't get a hold of him. I can't get a hold of any of the people that I know around him. And Ken actually called him. And that was one of the times I got a hold of him, was Ken put me in touch with him. But yeah, I mean, Ken helped me immensely as far as stuff like that. And even seeing Ken at shows, especially Lone Star Throwdown every year, we would talk back and forth, and Ken kind of kept me at a little more calm level than what I wanted to be. But
yeah. What a struggle. At what point, because I would see you at LST and I'd see you at C10s in the park. At what point were you just like, all right, I'm going up there? I think Mike Losh had a big part to do with that. And then you guys just, did you call Eric, or did you just say, I'm driving and we're showing up? And had you give him more money on top of what was the initial 30 and then the secondary 10?
I never really decided to go get my truck. Like I said, I was stuck in that position where I'd invested enough money into it to where I didn't have the luxury of just going pulling my build, take it somewhere else, and just turn around and start paying those guys to do it. I kind of had to leave it because there wasn't 40 grand worth of stuff done to my truck. You know what I mean? There wasn't $40,000 worth of work done. So I had to leave it, you know, so I didn't just lose that part of that build. Like I said, you guys had all, you know, hey, you got to go get your truck. Something ain't right with this cat. You know, something ain't jiving. This, you know, go get your truck before something screws up and you don't find it or whatever. And Eric emailed everybody that had to build with him on a Friday night, like at my time, 7:00 at night. He emailed everybody an email that said that as of 5:00 today, Square Body Specialist LLC is no longer in business. You're more than welcome to go pick up you're more than welcome to come pick up your unfinished build or leave it at the shop it's currently at and continue on with those people. That'll be your decision and you make your arrangements with them. So at that point, we figured he was bankrupting, you know, what's going to happen? Where's my stuff going to be? Am I going to get my stuff? So then it became right now, let's hurry up and get up there and get it. I literally asked Mike to borrow his trailer. I called Mike Loss, who's a good friend of mine. We don't live that far apart. Asked him simply if I could use his truck and trailer. I said, dude, I'll pay you. I'll rent it from you. I'll change the oil when I get back. I'll have it detailed. I said, I'll pay you for using the thing. He's like, heck no. Come on, let's go. When we going? Tell me a day. You know, him and his wife, Sarah, jumped in the truck. We made a road trip out of it. You know what I mean? He would not let me go without him. Just that kind of guy. And so anyway, then it became a hem haul session of, okay, I need to come get my truck. Well, it'll be this day 3 weeks from now. No, I can't do that. He has stuff going. He's going to a show that week. I've got stuff going. This is the only week we can come. And when I finally made the threat of, we're coming, whether you say so or not, I don't care how we have to load it or what we have to do. Then he finally, okay, I think we can make it work. Fast forward to that, it ended up being in Wisconsin at another guy's body shop in the middle of a cornfield, which was an old dairy barn. And when we found it, it was, my wife has pictures of it. It's unbelievable, the kind of shape it was in. Hadn't been touched since I had taken it back to Minnesota over a year before. And, you know, literally rolled it off in this guy's shop. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get it on frame sheet. We're going to get it fixed. We'll get that mocked up next week and, you know, start getting it back together. So literally over a year later, it had not had one thing done to it since I dropped it off, but be moved to Wisconsin. Eric wouldn't show up when it was the day to meet and get my stuff. Wouldn't show up. He come in the middle of the night and the night before, I guess, and parked a trailer with all my parts on it outside. It rained on it that night. My LS motor was laying on its side, unwrapped. My transmission was sitting on the trailer, unwrapped. And take into consideration, when I took my truck to him, I took him a fresh LS motor, fresh transmission, all this stuff that if he had completed the job within a year like he said he was going to do, all my stuff was going in there, done, you know. Well, now it's all set for 6 years. Get the motor home, try to roll it over. It's full of dirt, dauber's nest. It's got to be tore down and freshened. I mean, you name it. Major components of my truck weren't there. My bumpers, my steering column. I mean, just big, massive pieces, not like little clips and switches that got overlooked. I mean, there's like huge things that go to my truck weren't there. So anyway, a little back and forth with the guy that, you know, we were picking it up from. Well, I told Mike, I said, I know where he lives. I said, we're headed to his house. We'll find the rest of my parts. So I guess that guy snuck off, called him. And then all of a sudden, oh, I found your bumpers. I'll meet you at Target on your way out of town. And I got back a bunch of rusted stuff that wasn't even my stuff, that had been laying probably on the ground off a parts truck or something. You know, he just tried to give me something to get me out of town I guess, without choking him.
So you did actually
And,
meet up at like a Target and you saw him?
Yes. Yep. He would not. He's, real adamant. Don't come to my house. My driveway's muddy. You'll get stuck. Meet me at Target. I'll meet you over here. He actually did meet me and Mike. Like I said, he brought me a bunch of old junk parts that were not my parts. Still didn't have my steering column and things like that. So yeah, he actually met. I don't know. I'm sure everybody that's seen me at the show here lately knows I'm gray headed, but I used to be red headed. I'm a little temperamental at times. So at one point, in talking to him, I finally realized that, you can't win an argument with an idiot. They're right and you're wrong, and that's all there's to it. So to save going to jail that day, I got my truck and left and thought, well, I'll pursue it legally at a later date and time. So another thing about, as far as what this podcast is about learning who you're dealing with, my truck being so sentimental, it'd never been wrecked. All my parts were 1983 parts. I was very specific with him when I took him the truck. I don't want a bunch of cheap repop aftermarket trim pieces and this and that. All my stuff's good. Just my grill trim needs to be polished up, this and that, a couple little dings pecked out. I want my stuff back on my truck. Oh, yes, absolutely. We can do that. No problem. You'll get all your parts back. When I did find my truck, the few parts and pieces that I got back with it, as far as like grill trim, that kind of stuff, were new in a tube, the cheapest thing you could buy. All the stuff that he put on his quote sheet, he quoted this whole build to me, and I got a quote sheet that says what everything's going to be. The stuff he actually did buy for my truck, or that I actually got for my truck, was the cheapest Rock Auto whatever you could get offline, flimsy, chintzy, thin, just to save a buck.
Yeah. I'm buying you. I'm buying you made in the USA Marquet trim, and then
you're getting
it's all from China.
Delco this, AC Delco that, Moog this, Moog that, and what I got was brands I've never heard of from Rock Auto. Was everything that was bought for my truck. So what he was going to do was throw some new cheap trim on there that looked nice and perfect for the day of delivery and go, yep, that's what we did. We fixed all your stuff. And I'd have never seen the rest of it. So in somewhat of conclusion, the best thing I can tell people is if they won't let you go to their shop, if they won't give you the numbers for the last 5 builds they done, so you can call and talk to that guy and see if they were happy or what happened or how it went, do not spend $1 with them. You know what I mean? There's a lot of reputable shops out there, and I know it sucks. There's getting to be fewer and fewer shops that will do a full build, and that's why the shop labor is so outrageous now, because there's so few people that can be trusted. Do your homework. I mean, and yeah, he was in a different situation where he had just started square body specialist, and he only had a couple builds under his belt, so there wasn't that many people you could talk to. But you just have to. I mean, you're taking a 50-50 gamble. You might as well go throw your money on the table at Vegas if you take that gamble of dropping something off, paying money down without having done the homework of, I talked to the last 5 guys he built a car for, or I was at his shop and I met his employees and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, don't take that chance.
When you're looking for classic Chevy or GMC truck parts, BrothersTrucks.com is your #1 source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC truck restoration parts. So whether you are restoring an original or looking to customize that classic truck, BrothersTrucks.com has thousands of the highest quality truck parts for you to choose from. So head over to BrothersTrucks.com and order your free catalog today. And don't forget to follow Brothers on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates and special offers too.
Hey guys, how about a happy 10-year anniversary to the team at Pro Performance? For 10 years, Travis and his team have provided their customers the best products on the market for our trucks. They sell Dakota Digital, Bear Brakes, Boyd Welding, QA1, Vintage Air, and more. They're your one-stop shop for all your truck part needs, stocking fast-moving items to help with production delays. So think Pro Performance when you are creating that parts list for your build. azproperformance.com. That's azproperformance.com.
Since the 1960s, US Mags has held the title for the longest-running custom wheel tradition. Experience the wheels that made history and set the trends for American truck culture for decades to come. From cast wheels to full custom 1- and 2-piece forged wheels, US Mags keeps you and your truck in mind with every new design and model. Our cast wheel series are designed specifically for Chevy trucks and are stocked and ready to ship, giving you the wheels you need when you need them with perfect fitment. Set your ride apart with our custom forged wheels, available in just about any finish and fitment desired. US Mags are guaranteed to distinguish your style and attitude from the rest.
Don't take that chance.
Yeah, and I, hindsight is actually crystal clear, but like I talked a little bit with Ryan. Sorry,
Ryan.
I talked a little.
There's a Brian too.
Yeah. I talked a little bit with Ryan. Was you break it up into maybe a 4 or 8 payment system, and but that's easily said too, because I could see you pay, let's just say it's an easy 80 grand. We're going to do 10 or 8 payments of 10,000, and you get 10, and then he's calling for the other 10. You're like, okay, send me some pictures and some progress. And you're like, oh, sure. And so he's giving you maybe more than you're actually really getting. But the one thing I do like is where Ryan said, if you pick a shop that's local, you can roll in there anytime and be like, hey, how come my truck isn't to where I paid it up to be? Whereas like in a house, and it's easy to use in a house, you're there, you're looking at it, you're seeing it, and like, oh, I can't get a draw from the bank, or you're not getting a draw from me because you didn't meet this step. And until we get to this step, you're not getting any money. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of your, what would you say if, it's so easy, and I don't even, I don't want to be disrespectful, but what would you say, 1 or 2 of the absolute biggest things, not just the go local or go to the shop. But, and I just think you guys were just in a sad, swindling situation, especially because like your truck, it was so sentimental, and now, I can't think, but it has a little bit of a bad taste,
Oh, horrible. That's what I said. If the truck wasn't what it was and didn't mean what it meant to me, I'd have took the parts and pieces that I gathered and brought home and put them on another square body and took off and enjoyed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The truck has to be finished someday, for what it means to me, what it is. And then someday when I fall over and leave this earth, it's my kid's truck. You know what I mean? It'll always be there. I won't let that truck go. I can't. But Ryan's got a very good point. Trying to stay local, or at least close enough. Or if you're blessed enough to have that ability to be able to jump on a plane and fly somewhere and go look at your build, that's awesome too. That's a good thing. I didn't have that luxury because he sold himself so well as a square body specialist. You know what I mean? This guy knows nothing but what I have, and he's in my budget. Yeah, it sucks he's in Wisconsin, and, well, he's got a shop that he works with in Wisconsin. He's out of Minnesota, but it sucks it's that far away, but really it's an 11-hour drive. I mean, once every 6 months you could make a weekend trip out of it and run up there and check on your stuff. But then again, he wouldn't let you do that. There was always a reason why you couldn't come, or, well, it's wintertime up here and everything's muddy. You can't get to my shop. And so, yeah, I would, if at all possible, try to stay local. But a lot of us have talked about this before. In the area I'm in, I'm not in Dallas or Phoenix, where you got people like, Trey 5 Eye Candy, Jason Bowman, those guys. There's a lot of shops where you live. There is nobody within a 8 to 10 hour radius of me that does full builds. I'm in a rural area where these body shops do fender and hood jobs because that's what makes the insurance money back out the door. They won't touch painting a 69 Camaro. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So depending on the logistics of where you're at, sometimes you have to take that chance and put it that far out. But yeah, it's definitely a dangerous situation not to be able to pop in and check on progress, you know. And I think he got by a long time with that because all his customers were from Pennsylvania, Florida, Oklahoma, those kinds of places where they couldn't just run by and check on stuff or pop in unannounced, or, you know. And then the few times I said, hey, I'm going to come check my truck out. And he's like, oh, my family's taking a vacation upstate, you know, that week. We won't be around. So
yeah, it does. You know, you look at the crystal ball and you're right. He's up in Wisconsin, Minnesota. And I'll tell you, I would send people his way in, like, when they would have specific square body style questions, I'd be like, hey, this guy is the knowledgeable square body specialist. So I was fooled or foiled as well. I felt like Eric was the square body specialist, and he did a great job. The things that I would ask, he would have responses. I mean, we had text and Facebook messages back and forth. And then, you know, once I heard of, you know, some of the shenanigans going on, mostly with you. And then once I saw Ryan's Facebook post the other day, that's where I was like, oh, we're making this happen. Because you and I had kind of talked about it a little bit, but it's like, all right, one thing, but you've got three different people. Again, I'm not here to bash anybody. And if the audience, I sure apologize if you think I'm just bashing Eric, but if you have 2, 3, 4 people,
no, have him call in. We want to hear his side of the story.
I've tried. I will try again one more time. I'll reach out to him one more time. I have called and I have texted. So we'll see. Now, okay. So let's go, I guess, to the current, where and what is going on with Longbed Larry right now.
It's in limbo a little bit, not bad. Like I said, I got back a truck that did not have $40,000 worth of work done to it. I didn't get back a lot of my truck. So now I've got just these what I call nickel and dime things. You know, you need a $1,200 column. You need this, you need that. And before you know it, you're sitting around looking like, oh crap, I'm getting ready to spend another $40,000 just to get my parts, you know, that I'm missing now. Plus the motor rebuild and the tranny rebuild and all the things that were ready when I took them up there. And now I'm starting from scratch again. Well, Mike Loss has been huge in keeping me motivated. You know, he's all the time, hey, you know, get on the ball, you know, work a little bit of time. Let's try to get the thing done. Terry Hill, Mark Ramirez, the Square Body USA guys, they have reached out to vendors and companies that they work with and people like that. And I'm not necessarily just trying to give them a sob story. It's just like hey, this is what happened to this guy. He's this far behind in something that should have been done 6 years ago. Can you sell it to him at cost? Can you do this, do that? Those guys have been super helpful, trying to get me parts and pieces and stuff to further along the build. Terry has offered to help do some body work and paint work stuff on it, trying to, you know, to get it to the point we can put the thing together. I don't know if you know this. Terry's actually on a new show. If you know Shorty, Javier Ponce, that was on Iron Resurrection. He's the painter for Iron Resurrection. Anyway, Shorty now has his own show. They're in the first season of filming. Terry's actually on that show. So Terry has used his relationship with Shorty and told him about my truck, and they have partnered together to, you know, try to help whatever they can do to try to get my truck finished, because the whole thing wasn't even painted when I got it back. So they're trying to do what they can to try to, hey, you know, bring it down when we got time. Let's try to get you to that point where you can get the thing put together. So as of right now, there's still a lot of unknowns. There's still, I mean, I don't know what that's going to cost me. I don't know what this is going to cost me. You know what I mean? I don't know. And everything goes up daily. That's just the way the economy is right now. So I feel like I'm sliding further and further behind. Every week I try to go a step further in the truck. But it's those guys, like you said, it's not the trucks, it's the people. it's those guys in this community that even keep me wanting to even try to put the stupid thing back together, because every time I get down about it and think, I can't do this no more, then somebody gives me a phone call. Hey man, I talked to a guy at Bear Brakes. We're working to deal with them, try to get you a set of brakes, this and that. And so it's that stuff that keeps me motivated. And I want, back when Eric had the truck, QA1, when they first come out with their square body kit, I got the first kit they built. There was one other kit in existence, and that was on Damian Bross's truck, the guy that works at QA1. He had the prototype kit on his truck. The first one that come off the CNC machine in the welder come to Eric. I mean, that was my kit because it was going to Seaman. They wanted to be shown.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love for my truck to be together to where, not even for me, but I can take it and let everybody see the QA1 kit and the Bear Brakes and this custom set of wheels and all the stuff people have done for the build. I want to get it out there and so people can see their product even more than I want to drive it for myself.
Well, and one thing too, and I guess the story continues, is for a guy who, you're part of this community. We've seen this journey. We've, heard of different stories of this, and I know you're probably not wanting to get too far down this wormhole, but you are a COVID survivor who, at one point, I think it was Terry, but somebody reached out to me and was like, it
was Terry.
Yeah. Have you talked to Steven lately? Like, he was, circling the drain with COVID. And so I would hope that with the community support and your new lease on life yourself, and then not only Longbed Larry, but really, I think the journey in that chapter. And when you talk about those type of things, you have to move on, and you have to grind, and you have to someday be, road tripping that truck across state lines and having a good time.
Oh yeah.
And just smiling because.
Well, and real quick, I think you and I talked about this exactly, like within 3 days of a year prior to having COVID, I had a massive heart attack. And I truly, my wife, everybody, we truly, truly, truly believe it was the stress and anxiety over what was going on in my truck. It wasn't just that my truck or the money or whatever. It's what the truck meant to me and my family, and to figure out what was going on with it, and, the things that were happening with it and what's going to happen with it. And I literally, I think I stressed myself into a heart attack, and I did. I had a massive heart attack. I never figured out how I made it. It was the Widowmaker everybody talks about. And, and I truly believe, and even after the fact of them operating on me and stuff, they said, there's nothing wrong with you. You had a little plaque build up, and, your cholesterol's good, this and that. Might need to talk, think about de-stressing your life. And I truly believe I just stressed so long and so bad over that truck that I just drove myself into that sickness. It's terrible, but your brain is a powerful thing. Your brain can change everything about your body.
Yeah. And there was probably,
it's a bad deal.
You did things right that you wrote the check, and you maybe, paid, but you can't, those, there's guys that are doing the same exact thing day to day that just pick the right guy. You just happened to pick the wrong person. And it was and even Ryan talked about it. Like, I'm a good, quoting Ryan, I'm a good person. Why would somebody do this? And you can't take it personal, and you can't sit there and dwell on. I mean, it's easy for me to be on this side of the mic and say those things, but you've got your truck back. You've got your health is coming back. You survived a heart attack. You survived COVID. So yeah, we really just need, you guys and the family just cruising the truck again, and everything else behind, everything else in the rear view mirror.
Oh yeah. Well, I struggle with that on a daily basis. I want so bad to not look back at yesterday and go forward, but it's so hard when so much of that's dragging behind you.
Yeah.
But hopefully in the near future, we can get this thing together, and you'll see it at some shows. And it's a killer. I mean, I'm not just saying it because it's my truck. I'm saying the guys who did do work on it, like Brent at Sculpt Garage and some of the guys who did some body work and this and that, some of the work is unreal. I mean, I never in my life thought I would own something like some of these big name builds you see. And then when you see some of the body work done on this truck, it's like, wow. I'm just humbled that that's my truck, but it's so close yet so far from being done. But hopefully someday everybody will get to see it. And it's kind of one of those things. Like I said, it's about the people. I hope somebody learns something from this and doesn't choose the wrong guy and, you know, spend all their money and then get to this point and give up like I've wanted to do so many times. I hope somebody does some more research because of what I said and does a little homework and make sure they drop it off with the right shop, be able to stop in the shop, see their shop, and not get burnt like a few of us did. And we all together, the 4 or 5 guys that had trucks there while mine was there, we're talking, you know, hundreds of thousands that some guys just lost.
Yeah, frustrating, you know, because I don't want to beat a dead horse. Yeah, it's just one of those things where some of the, you know, just a kind of a fluke deal, and sure, there might have been a few things you could have done different, but some guys do the exact same thing and end up with the most amazing truck and so on and so forth. It's just kind of a shitty deal. But like you said, you wake up, you know, you've been through a lot, you survived it. Your family is supportive of you. And I think for our audience, we just have to say, you know, there's a few things that hopefully you've listened to Steven, you've listened to Ryan, and you can just, you know, and then I always say, trust your gut. If you could trust, I mean, your gut, it's pretty amazing when you get that little tingle, you get that little butterfly and you're like, I don't know. Maybe I should ask for this or ask for this. And sometimes we don't, because you just think, oh no, he's a good guy. He's square body specialist. He's going to take care of me.
Yeah.
And then you start to ignore some of the signs, because you're like, I'd rather ignore that because I don't want that to be true. He's not getting a hold of me. I got to give him the benefit of that. I got to give him the benefit of that. And then eventually you're like, I'm fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you nailed it to a T. I mean, exactly what happened to me. Part way through, I knew what was going on. Everybody around me knew what was going on. I was stuck. I was better being stranded in that situation than I was to leave it, because leaving it just meant in hindsight, at that point, if I collect my build and take it away, then all he's got to do is tell a judge or somebody that, no, this guy got mad and took his build and took it somewhere else. Whereas where I waited until the end where he folded, now I have documentation that he said, I didn't finish your build, come get it. So now I have that to fall back on of he said, I failed this. Now I can go toward him as, well, you're going to have to figure out how to give me some of my money back or something.
Now, Ryan talked a little bit about that. Do you guys think that you will have any kind of litigation civilly or anything with square body specialists?
Ryan and I talked. I picked up my truck just right under a week before Ryan did. I went and got mine first. Ryan went right after. I talked to Ryan coming home because I'd actually looked at Ryan's truck when I was picking my truck up. I called him. I said, dude, you're going to have a cow. I said, your truck's sitting there buried in parts, covered in stuff. I said, it looks horrible. And I asked him, I said, after you go collect your truck, get all your stuff, we inventory what you're missing, what I'm missing, this and that. I said, do you want to go together and try to pursue legal action against the guy? And Ryan's a business. I don't know if he made any reference. He's a businessman. He deals with legal problems every day. He's like, no, I've already lost that money. There's no sense in throwing money further into it to get a judgment against him and not get anything out of it. So I checked solely on myself for what I had. I mean, like I said, Eric wrote me a very detailed quote to build my truck. I've got all these emails and texts and everything from him. I've got all this documentation of everything he promised to do to my truck and for what dollar amounts and this and that. And I actually approached an attorney, a judge, this and that, district attorney. Luckily, I know one of the judges here in town, and he got me in contact, and they all reviewed all the stuff I had and what he'd said, what I'd said, my canceled checks, this and that. And they honestly want to prosecute him criminally. And And they kind of said the same thing Ryan did. They're like, you can sue him, you'll win it, you'll get a judgment, he'll go to bankrupt, you'll never get a dime out of it. All you're going to do is go through the headache, the stress, and the cost of getting a judgment for something you'll never receive any money out of. But for the dollar amount that I had spent with him and how he done it and the promises he made and the promises he failed on, they actually said that they thought I had a good chance of filing charges to prosecute him criminally for breach of contract and embezzlement. So that's where that's at. So yeah, if Eric's listening to this, hey, cut me a check before you go to jail and miss your kids for a few years. And that's kind of how it is right now.
Would you do that locally, or would that be something you'd have to do in Minnesota?
No, actually, that's that was a big hurdle that I thought was going to be a bad thing. Trying to pursue action towards someone in Minnesota, and it actually turned out to be more simple than I had ever thought it would be. Because we made all these contractual agreements over the phone. I'm sitting in Oklahoma, he's sitting in Minnesota, and we're texting each other, or he emails me. Because I'm sitting in Oklahoma where I live, I go to my county and I file everything right there, because technically the contract was made in Minnesota and Oklahoma. So I make all the filings here. That DA forwards it to Minneapolis or whatever that area is that handles his. He's just right outside, but they forward it to whoever handles his district right there. And then it becomes they prosecute it there, and eventually it comes down to a point of it goes back and forth between two district attorneys. And at some point it comes down to a court date, and the district attorneys decide if it happens in Oklahoma or Minnesota. So,
yeah, and you've got the documentation that shows this is the amount of money I paid. I've got these checks, and this is the amount of work that I've gotten. And so, yeah, you might have to change it to litigation Larry or legal Larry, but
I hope not. I'd like to go through this life and never have to sue anybody, but sometimes that's your last option, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of it would just depend on how much money. I mean, obviously, to have a few things filed probably wouldn't break the bank, and if that gave you a little bit of a feeling of justification or any type of level of, hey, maybe he got a little bit of what he had coming at him, or coming to him. So keep us posted on that. We'll do a little follow up on this. And as Longbed Larry, comes back alive, if there's anything we can do, the C10 community out there, if you've got any connections, anything, you can reach out to Steven, Longbed Larry, all one word, no spaces on IG. And I think we just kind of follow along. Obviously, I'll post some of this stuff up, and I'll get some pictures from you, and we'll put it out to the world, and we'll see what happens. But the bottom line is we're trying to educate the audience, the community. Unfortunately, there's going to be people out there that aren't always the most honest. I think most people know that, and we can just hopefully learn from the mistakes that people have made, and try to protect ourselves and one another. And if I just did this in the OBS world. We've got a lot of scammers for parts, for used parts. So I reached out to 3 of them. I heard back from one of them, and I interviewed him, and he is as solid as can be. And the other ones, probably shysters, and they're just not getting back. And it's like, okay, you're that busy. Okay, you're not that busy for a month. You can get back to me, and we can put the word out that you're a good dude, or so on and so forth. But that's just the world, unfortunately, that we live in. And when something's popular, like, Chevy C10 GM trucks and OBS trucks and everything else, there's going to be people, especially when it comes down to like parts. Cause you're like, I got to buy it right now. I got to send him $500. I'm going to lose it. I've been looking for this, this seat, this console, this dash, this, whatever. And you do that. And then you look back and you're like, God damn it. Why did I do that?
Yeah. And in closing, if anybody like in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area knows this guy, my fear is that he knows he's burnt his name in the C10 community. And my only fear is that, now he's going to do Corvettes, or the next thing that he can get 4 or 5 people to bring him a car and some money. If anybody in that area knows that he starts doing another kind of business or something, please, start passing the word around, because I hate to think that he checked out of the C10 community, but a year down the road, he's going to be taking somebody else's money for whatever he decides to build, becomes a Corvette specialist, or I'm going to build Camaros, or, that's my fear, is that what I went through and knowing what he's capable of and how he did it, I'm really afraid he's going to try to continue his lifestyle of accepting money for not doing any work.
Yeah, and history tends to show us that people that are like that have figured out a way and scam that money, and then they move on to the next,
Yep.
The old school, move on to the next county or the next subject or the next
Yep.
person. So, yeah, we'll stay in touch on that. I will, again, reach out to Square Body Specialists and see if I get any kind of comment, and I doubt that I will, but to be somewhat fair, I'll make that effort. Stephen, thanks for your time. Thanks for sitting down with us and sharing that experience. Go back, hang out with Mama, enjoy it, and let's get this truck done.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Okay, bro. Have a good night.
All right. You too. Bye.
All right, guys, wrapping it up. Thanks so much for tuning in to 240. Let me know what you think about the C10 Scam, the series that we did here with Ryan and with Steven. Obviously, I wanted to put the two of them together. That was my plan. But just get to yapping and listening and the story. And before you know it, you've got 2 episodes. So hopefully you enjoyed these 2 episodes. And you can either learn something from it, maybe pass something on, and hopefully we can try to curb some of this shysters and some of these scandalous people out there that are taking people for their money. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to change that much. It's just the things that you can do to protect yourself. All right, don't forget episode 241 with Scott Mason next week. And then we've got big fish coverage from the 100 Square Body auction. I'll be out there. All right, by the time this drops, I'll be only a few days from getting on a plane and headed to a party at Grand Island. Hopefully he's got the cell tower ramped up, and we can get you guys some live feeds while we're out there. All right, guys, until next week, I'm out. Late.